Which one's the apple?
We're going to get going, guys. We're going to be late.
Is it delicious?
Yeah.
Is that yum?
I ate them.
No?
Both Caitlin and I are working 5 days a week, so we need 5 days of support for the kids.
Right, Ted. Okay, you ready?
No,
Come on, let's go. Yeah.
And we were waiting for about 4 or 5 months before we were able to get a single day.
Caitlin Wilson and Jonathan Peatfield moved to regional New South Wales last year, hoping to escape the rat race.
Yeah. That's where your shoe goes. There.
They had no idea that competition for childcare in Uralla, near Armidale in the state's northeast, would be tougher than inner Sydney.
That's pretty cool.
Unfortunately, we've only been able to find 3 days full-time for both our children. One in Armidale and then another 25 minutes drive.
Caitlin and Jonathan are among 9 million Australians, more than a third of the population, living in places with a severe lack of childcare. These are areas where more than 3 children compete for each spot. It's worse for more than 1 million Australians who live in areas with no access to childcare at all.
When it comes to childcare access, where you live matters.
The research by the Mitchell Institute, partly funded by the Minderoo Foundation, compared the population of children under 5 to available childcare places.
Inner city areas have better access than outer suburban areas, wealthier suburbs have better access than more disadvantaged suburbs, and most strikingly, major cities have much better access than regional Australia. And this variation in access happens more in childcare than it does in any other part of our education system.
See, mate. Have a good day. See you a bit later.
Childcare is a linchpin for women's employment, which in turn drives economic growth, boosts financial security and improves social and health outcomes for women and families. The data reveals a stark divide between the city and the bush, with people in regional and remote Australia up to 3 times as likely to face a severe lack of childcare.
In a major city, you might have to go an extra 10 minutes further to get the childcare that you need. But in a regional area, if there's no childcare available in the 1, 2, 3 or 4 providers in town, and what that ends up meaning is that they're not going to be able to work.
Even in capital cities, which have the best access to childcare, nearly 30% of people live in neighbourhoods where more than 3 children compete for each available place.
In Australia's childcare system isn't one that puts the child at the centre of it. Providers are going to go where there's the least risk and the most reward. That often means in wealthier suburbs where they can charge more.
Childcare costs have risen by 60% over the past 10 years to an average $106 per day. The childcare subsidy is meant to level the playing field, but that hasn't happened, with families that use childcare earning nearly 1.5 times more than those that don't.
Childcare is that one lever or that key to unlocking and unravelling an enormous amount of inequality in our policy settings and in our society generally. It's actually the key to Australia's future.
And one of the big challenges, I think, is that there's so many families out there where a parent, often, unfortunately, the mother is working 3 days a week purely to cover childcare costs.
The way that Australia's childcare subsidy system discourages mothers from working more than 3 days a week has been highlighted as a critical flaw in a number of reports, including a 2020 analysis by the Grattan Institute. That report found that every dollar spent on childcare boosted GDP by at least $2. This financial year, childcare subsidies are expected to cost the government $10.3 billion, up from $9 billion the previous year. Earlier this month, the government lifted the subsidy for families with 2 or more children, while the opposition has promised increased subsidies for all families earning less than $530,000 a year. It's also pledged to review the system with the aim of introducing a universal 90% subsidy for all families.
I think it's fantastic that we're finally having these meaty conversations around childcare. But what we're seeing from a policy perspective from the 2 major parties is really just a tinkering around the edges. This entire sector, from the way that workers are paid to the way that we view workers to the way that the government helps support parents and the parents' role in paying for childcare and so on, all of these things need to be reimagined.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.